I've been very excited about covering this next passage because as I was studying it, a new revelation that I believe God showed me was just because the world tries to put an identity on you doesn't mean you need to accept it. So let's read this next passage and then I'll explain how I came to that revelation. Now, from among those of the sons of Judah were Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. To them, the chief of the eunuchs gave names. He gave Daniel the name of Belteshazzar, to Hananiah, Shadrach, to Mishael, Meshach, and to Azariah, Abednego. It's like, okay, how from those passages do we get the idea that just because the world tries to put an identity on you doesn't mean you need to accept it? So, a practice that is less common today is that names have meanings and that the meaning of somebody's name is their identity. This was a practice that was quite common in Bible times. This is why we have God changing the name of Abram to Abraham, why Jesus changed the name of Peter from, I think it was Cephas, to Peter. It was because that first name was one identity, and the second name was the new identity that God was putting forward on them. That was the identity of the promise that God had over their lives. So that was God putting an identity on them. Now, these guys here, their original names. Now, I've got a note to the side of what their names mean. As I did a bit of research, I came across a few different explanations, but they were all very similar. So this is my current research of it. As I say, they were all in the same idea. So if it's slightly off this interpretation, it's still going to convey the exact same sort of message. Okay, so the name Daniel means God is my judge, and that was changed to Belteshazzar, which means the treasure of Baal. Now, Baal was a pagan god that the Babylonians were worshipping. So Daniel's name went from being God as in Jehovah. Jehovah is my God. The God of the Bible is my judge, to Belteshazzar. Oh, he's the treasure of a pagan god. Hananiah means the Lord is gracious. So yet again, we're talking about Jehovah is gracious. His name got changed to Shadrach, commander of Aku, AKU, and that's the moon god. Then you've got Mishael, who like God, and changed to Meshach, who is what? Anuk. So yet again, gone from worshipping Jehovah, his name, to a worship of the God of the Babylonians. Azariah, the Lord helps, Jehovah helps. To Abednego, servant of Nego. So Nego, yet again, a pagan god. So all their names, their original Jewish names that they were given from their parents, were a worship of God, a worship of Jehovah. And then all their names, and I say Jehovah just to kind of make it clear that I'm talking about the God of the Jews. These different things of like the Lord help, it could have been other variations of the name Jehovah, like, into Moses, he calls himself I am who I am. And just so many beautiful names. But in their name change, all the names that were put on them were saying that they were now servants of a pagan god, servants of the Babylonians' god, that their new names was a worship to the Babylonian. And we're going to see in the very next sections and sections to come that they did not succumb to their new name. They purposed in their heart that they were going to serve Jehovah. They purposed in their heart that Jehovah was the one true God, and that's who they were going to worship. So they went, you're going to put that identity on me. You're going to call me that. Okay. But I'm not going to accept that identity. That is not my identity. And I think that's such a beautiful thing. And going, okay, where did I get that? That's not their identity. We're going to see in the very next section what Daniel purposed in his heart. And then it's not too far down the track either, we're going to see about the when Nebuchadnezzar builds a statue and everyone has to worship. And Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are like, we're not worshipping that. So they get thrown into the fire. They get thrown into the furnace. And all of a sudden, there's a fourth one. They're dancing around and praising. So that is where I say, even though these identities were put on them, they didn't accept them. And where I want to go with that is that same sort of idea for us today. How many times does the world try to tell you that you're less than? How many times does the world try to tell you you're not good enough? You're not, insert anything, or try to tell you that you are, and it's something that's less than, that you whatever. You have your own experiences. You know what has been tried to put on your identity. The reality is your identity can only come from God. Your identity can only come from the one who created you, the one who knitted you together in your mother's womb. The identity that he says you are, that is who you are. He didn't make a mistake when he created you. He got it right. Your personality is right. Yes, we sin. Yes, we do the wrong thing. And that sin isn't how God created us. That sin is a result of living in this world that is fallen. But your personality of how God created you, if you are a bold personality, that boldness, he didn't make a mistake with that. We make a mistake by not being gentle with that boldness, but that boldness is still a good thing. If you are somebody who sits back and is quiet and listen, God didn't make a mistake with that. But where we make a mistake is we stay silent when God's like, you saw that because you're silent. Now it's time to speak. So that's why I say our personality, God did not make a mistake with our identity. And just because the world is trying to put one on you does not mean you need to accept it. We can learn from these guys right here that they didn't accept it, and neither should we.